What's that word, YouTube? It's your boy Marko Stats, and it's another episode of Marko Stats Reacts. And just like I said in my previous video, I'm feeling sick as hell today. I got a sinus infection, but I told myself I was going to drop at least one video per day on my YouTube, so I'm going to keep it going because I like to stand on business. Today, we're going to react to the rise and fall of the Gaylords. The rise and fall of the Gaylords, Chicago's most prominent white street gang. Now, when I tell people who are not from Chicago that there used to be a white gang that's called the Gaylords, that used to be in Chicago running wild, they always look at me crazy. But this is a known fact. There was a gang that was called the Gaylords that was a white gang. I actually got a homie, I ain't going to say his name. I got a white homie who's his father used to be a Gaylord, and I met his father and he used to always talk about, what I'm saying, like being a Gaylord like back in the day and shit like that. So, yeah, I never seen this documentary before, so it's going to be interesting for me too. But without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. The rise and fall of the Gaylords, Chicago's most prominent white street gang.
12 members of the Gaylord street gang sit in chairs with their hands cuffed behind their backs after they were arrested early this morning. Busts like this took place in Wisconsin and several Chicago suburbs.
It's a very big deal in law enforcement, especially against the Gaylord street gang. They're a street gang that should actually be eliminated from the face of the earth. They have no good purpose whatsoever.
Damn.
But there's been times when he's gangbanging with me against the Latin Kings, So we'll help each other out, If Latin Kings are getting on these people over here, I'll help them out, because they live in the neighborhood. They don't cause no trouble. That's why we don't fight them, But there's punks in every club, like I said. There's punks in Gaylords, there's punks in Disciples, there's punks in Royals, punks in Rebels. Every now and then, there's going to be a little beef.
Chicago's gang history is layered, complex, and often dominated by stories of Black and Latino street organizations. But one name carved out its own legacy in the shadows of the city's evolving streets: the Gaylords. As the most prominent white street gang in Chicago, the Gaylords were born not in crime, but in community athletic clubs and neighborhood pride. From their roots in West Town and Little Village, they evolved into a structured organization with deep territorial loyalty, greaser culture, and a fiercely guarded brotherhood. The Gaylords' presence was more than just about turf, it was about identity. They defended working-class white neighborhoods through decades of demographic change, clashing with rival gangs and resisting the tide of migration and gentrification. Over time, they built alliances, battled in parks and alleys, and created a legacy both feared and respected. This story explores their rise, their street-level politics, the legendary figures who led them, and the neighborhoods that once flew their colors.
In the western suburbs tonight, an end of an 18-month investigation into illegal trafficking in weapons. Police rounded up suspects in Addison and across the state line into Wisconsin.
Addison, Illinois. I know where that's at too. That's like the suburbs.
Some of the more than 12 members of the Gaylord street gang sit in chairs with their hands cuffed behind their backs after they were arrested early this morning. Busts like this took place in Wisconsin and several Chicago suburbs.
They was in Wisconsin too?
Especially against the Gaylord street gang. They're a street gang that should actually be eliminated from the face of the earth. They have no good purpose whatsoever.
Most of the defendants are accused of illegally selling or possessing firearms. Addison police initiated the investigation some 18 months ago. Detectives say the gang members sold thousands of rounds of ammo, an assault rifle, and 10 other guns to a former gang member turned police informant. 6 defendants were arrested on state narcotics and gun charges, including the man on the left, who's known as Hellraiser, and the man on the right, who goes by Nazi Bill.
We live in the same neighborhood, ain't no sense in, fucking each other off. But there's been times when he's gangbanging with me against
Does
the
that say
Latin
white
Kings,
power?
So we'll help each other out.
That says white power. Is that a Nazi symbol? What the fuck?
Here, I'll help them out, because they live in the neighborhood.
And they got a black lady with them too.
Trouble. That's why we don't fight them,
I think the Gaylords used to be in Uptown too. That's what I heard on the north side. That's crazy that they They got black people with them too. They got fucking Nazi symbols on their shirts and shit. Like, what the fuck?
But there's punks in every club, like I said. There's punks in Gaylords, there's punks in Disciples, there's punks in Royals, punks in Rebel. You know, every now and then, you know, there's gonna be a little beef, but we try our best, you know, just to keep neutral with each other.
We fight the same game. We fight the Latin Kings, the Vice Lords, and the Stones. So we fight all the same game. So plus our colors are the same, you know.
So why would we have the same colors?
What are the colors?
Huh?
What are your colors?
Black and blue.
Black and blue?
Done, you know? We get jumped over here one day, next day we come running up there. They get 35 guys on us over here. We come back next day and we get all of us united and come back against them.
Oh shit.
That's maniac.
Yeah,
Then we got to go back there and get them, and it ain't no good, you know. It's just we're like all together now. Instead of staying there, everybody has to stay in their own neighborhood. That's no more, you know. Everybody can go. Like I even feel better. I can walk down the street without having to turn around waiting for a bullet. You know?
The Gaylords' origins trace back to the 1930s, not as a street gang, but as a legitimate community club. In Chicago's southern West Town neighborhood, the Postal Athletic Club was formed as a social athletic club, a popular type of youth organization at the time. The group focused on sports like basketball and softball, acting as a positive outlet for neighborhood boys. Over time, the club's influence expanded with the creation of the Junior Postals in the late 1940s to serve even younger teens. These early clubs were not gangs. They were respected, community-centered groups whose storefront headquarters housed trophy collections rather than weapons. However, the seeds of gang culture were being sown through loyalty, neighborhood pride, and structured brotherhoods. By the early 1950s, the Junior Postals grew roadier, developing the attitude and behaviors that would become hallmarks of greaser and gang life. Simultaneously, another story was unfolding in the Little Village neighborhood, where older youths formed a rival group, the original Gaylords, as a direct response to the rowdy motorcycle riding outlaws MC who had moved into the area. These Gaylords were not teenagers. They were in their 20s and quickly became known for their bikes, street presence, and aggressive attitude. By 1953, the rebellious preteens of West Town, including future founding members like Anthony, Johnny Boy, and Arena, and Bobby Shipball, were expelled from the Postal Athletic Club for unruly behavior. This unofficial band of outcasts formed the foundation of what would soon become the Gaylords gang in West Town. Meanwhile, in Little Village, the Gaylords clashed with the outlaws in increasingly violent encounters. Their turf stretched from 21st to 26th Streets, and they proudly rode Cushman and Whizzer motorbikes, embodying the 1950s greaser archetype. By 1958, the West Town Gaylords had officially adopted the name, and their first clubhouse opened at Willard Court and Huron. They would later relocate to Ohio and Noble, forming what became the mother chapter of the almighty Gaylords Nation, AGLN. The gang's membership grew rapidly, and by the end of the decade, they had become a dominant force on the North Side. The 1960s brought seismic
dominant force on the North Side. Yeah, the North Side of Chicago. That's where I'm from. The North Side of Chicago. That's where Young Pappy from. That's where Polo G from. Yeah, man, my homie's pops, they used to be a Gaylord. He grew up on the North Side representing that Gaylord shit, you know, like back in his era. So that's crazy.
Changes to Chicago's neighborhoods. As Black and Hispanic populations moved into traditionally white areas, racial tensions exploded, and the Gaylords positioned themselves as defenders of white, working-class turf. In West Town, the gang's expansion was met with increasing resistance from Black and Puerto Rican gangs like the Vice Lords, Egyptian Cobras, and the newly formed Latin Kings. By now, the Gaylords
Egyptian
had
Cobras,
fully
they used to
embraced
call
greaser
themselves
culture,
Egyptian Cobras?
light green jackets with skull and whiskey emblems, motorbike clubs, and a deeply rooted pride in Irish, Italian, Polish, and German heritage. Their new symbol, a Celtic cross with a sunburst, became synonymous with Gaylord identity. They operated in sections, each with its own leadership. From Eckhart Park to Wells High School, their influence grew. Their hierarchy included senior and junior Gaylords. On the south side, a Gaylord presence emerged in back of the yards and heart of Chicago, where they feuded with Black P. Stones, Latin Souls, and Mexican gangs. These Gaylords were forged in street fights and retaliatory violence, often clashing with enemies at schools, parks, and pool halls. By the 1970s, the Gaylords were at their peak, boasting a membership of over 6,000 citywide. They had become Chicago's largest white street gang and the second largest gang overall, behind only the Latin Kings. Their power was reinforced through alliances. They formed the G Gaylords, C Notes, Gents, and later the UFO United Five Organization Alliance, which included Gaylords, C Notes, Playboys, Ventures, and Pulaski Park. These alliances enabled the Gaylords to organize massive street shows of force, 100 or more gang members traveling in convoys to attack rivals. Gaylord sections exploded across the city. Belmont Cragen, Hermosa, Logan Square, Albany Park, Austin, Uptown, and more. Key parks like
He said Uptown, see? Told y'all.
Kilburn, Sayre, and more became strongholds. The Gaylords were often seen as guardians of white communities in the face of urban decline and demographic shifts. They refused to align with either.
From what I heard, like, so when all of the black gangs from the south side, like when they migrated to the north side, like certain areas, because like you got Cabrini Green, you know, of course, you guys know, well, you guys may not know, used to be one of the most notorious projects in America, and that was on the north side of Chicago. So like you had that, but then you still had black people from the south side that was moving to the north side, to the north side, you know, because like Cabrini Greens is like, is at like the very start of the north side. You know what I'm saying? So when you get like, you know, start to get deeper in the north side, where you get to like Lakeview, Uptown, Edgewater, Rogers Park, like that's like the deep north side. When they started to migrate more and more north, the Gaylords, the Uptown Rebels. It was a gang that was called the Uptown Rebels, the Gaylords, and all these other white gangs. They used to get into it with the black gangs, you know, and be like, why the fuck is y'all moving into our, you know what I'm saying, area and shit, like this is our area. And they used to go to war with the black gangs, you know.
Of the two dominant prison-based alliances, the People Nation or the Folks Nation, until the early 1980s, preferring to remain fiercely independent. However, increasing prison violence and growing Hispanic gang power began to challenge this stance. The 1980s marked the beginning of a slow, painful decline for the Gaylords. The once proud organization was ravaged by...
Whoa. One of these dudes looked familiar. He kind of looked like my homie's pops. That's interesting.
Internal issues, drug addiction, incarceration, retirement, and shifting neighborhood demographics. Many younger members defected to growing organizations like the Disciples, Vice Lords, and Latin Kings, who promised power and profit through the drug trade. The People Nation Alliance eventually absorbed the Gaylords, though not all sections complied.
Folks Nation.
The Lincoln Square Gaylords, for instance, openly refused to recognize the alliance and maintained war with the Latin Kings. Turf conflicts escalated, notably between Gaylords and former allies like the Simon City Royals and Insane Popes.
The Simon City Royals, that was another white gang.
Mass closures of entire Gaylord sections occurred. Logan Square, once a Gaylord stronghold, became predominantly Hispanic, and all sections there were shut down by 1990. Similar stories unfolded in Hermosa, back of the yards, and Belmont Cragen. The gang's once feared presence was now fragmented and increasingly irrelevant in the evolving gang landscape of Chicago, where drugs, street-level economics, and large-scale alliances dictated power. By the early 2000s, the Gaylords had lost most of their visible turf. However, remnants of the gang remained in neighborhoods like Jefferson Park, Albany Park, and small parts of the Northwest Side. Former members largely aged out of active gang life, taking on jobs, raising families, and shifting into legitimate roles in their communities. The Gaylords' legacy is one of contradiction. They were guardians and aggressors, protectors and predators. In some neighborhoods, they were seen as heroes who kept the peace and stood against outside threats. In others, they were remembered as violent enforcers of segregationist ideals. Yet, even in retirement, many ex-Gaylords maintain a sense of identity and brotherhood. They reflect on their past not with nostalgia for violence, but with a recognition of how their environment shaped them. The stories of their rise and fall serve as a mirror to the urban shifts that defined Chicago throughout the 20th century. The Gaylord story is as much about Chicago's neighborhoods as it is about gang culture. What began as youth clubs eventually evolved into one of the city's most notorious organizations, shaped by the pressures of migration, economic decline, and community transformation. Their rise tells us about pride, loyalty, and survival. Their fall reminds us of the cost of violence and the inevitability of change. And their legacy lingers in the memories of city blocks where once the Gaylords ruled. Bradley Geronimo Zeman, a well-known member and likely the chief of the Sealy and Ainsley section of the Northside Gaylords, was a respected and recognized figure within the organization.
Sealy and Ainsley, I know where that's at.
Known on the streets as Geronimo, he represented his set with pride and was a central figure in their activities during the mid-1990s. Tragically, in 1996, Zeman met his demise by a member of the Black P. Stones Nation. The Black P. Stone member was later convicted and sentenced to 55 years in prison for the deletion. After serving over 20 years, he was reportedly released in June of this year. The loss of Geronimo was a major moment in Northside Gaylord history and remains a poignant reminder of the intense gang rivalries that defined Chicago streets in that era. Darrell Chief Rowe, a well-known and respected figure within the Palmer Street Gaylords, was one of the most notorious Native American leaders to come out of the Northside chapter. Known as Chief, Rowe was old school, part of a generation that helped cement the Gaylords' presence in neighborhoods like Logan Square during their peak years. Featured in the Chicago Gang book, Rowe earned a reputation for his deep roots in the organization and his no-nonsense leadership style. His criminal record is said to be longer than a Sam's Club receipt, stretching across decades and covering a wide range of offenses. About 3 years ago, Rowe was arrested in Wisconsin on drug trafficking charges, marking another chapter in a long, tumultuous history. Despite the changes in Chicago's gang landscape over the years, names like Chief Rowe still echo across the city and beyond as reminders of an era when the Gaylords ruled the streets. The KP Gaylords, based around Addison and Kilburn, are one of the more well-known Gaylord sets from Chicago's Northwest Side. Centered near Kilburn Park, this crew played a strong role in holding down territory.
I used to play basketball over there when I was in high school. Yeah, Kilburn Park. Damn, I know exactly where that's at. And I know what gang is over there now, so I ain't know that the Gaylords used to be over there.
During the height of the Gaylords' influence. Their block served as a key outpost as the organization expanded deeper into the Northside neighborhoods during the late 60s and 70s. Another notable faction is the Dunham Park Gaylords, also known as LM, short for Leland and Melvina. This set was posted near Dunham Park in the Jefferson Park area and became part of the broader Northside push as the Gaylords moved into more suburban feeling zones. The story of the Gaylords is more than just the tale of a street gang. It's a reflection of Chicago's changing social fabric. From greasers on motorbikes to organized street forces holding down parks, schools, and blocks, the Gaylords represented a generation that clung to neighborhood pride, often violently, as their world changed around them. Today, the visible presence of the Gaylords has faded, but their impact remains etched into the memory of Chicago's north and west sides. The stories of figures like Bradley Geronimo, Zeman and Daryl Chief Rowe, and the history of sets like KP and Dunham Park live on in whispers and old photos, graffiti tags, and oral history. They are a reminder of the city's deep-rooted gang culture and of a time when unity, territory, and identity were everything.
There you guys have it. That was the rise and fall of the Gaylords, Chicago's most prominent white street gang. Make sure that you guys like this video, comment on this video if you guys got some comments about this. Like I said, I'm from the north side of Chicago, so I've heard about them. I've known people that used to associate with them, but I never knew their like extensive history. So I definitely just learned a lot by watching this. Hope y'all did too. Make sure that you guys click that notification bell to be updated on all my videos. But till next time, y'all know who the fuck it is. It's Marko Stats. It's Swayze. Love y'all, man. Peace.